Hello, Astrology with Real Stars, Chronosight Weekly Horoscope. We'll start with the story for the latter half of January 2026, from January 16th to the 31st. As I previously discussed last time, the month of January during this current year is a period with many significant and complex celestial structures. So in the first half, there was a challenging and intense period where the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, each in their own turn, formed a direct opposition with the retrograding Jupiter in Cancer. And so, then the latter half, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars will leave Cancer one by one, and enter Aquarius. So they will form a conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius in turn, and before that, they will also form conjunctions with each other. So the important structure remains firmly in place, but it probably won't be quite as intense or overwhelming as the very beginning of the month. Of course, in terms of results, a more serious event could happen in the latter half of the month. So the first structure that comes in is as Mercury moves at 25 degrees of Capricorn, at 25 degrees of Capricorn, it meets Mars. To be precise, it will be the early part of 26 degrees, right? This happens on January 18th, and it's a structure that is active from January 14th to the 22nd. During this time, you can put a long-prepared plan into action. But this plan is not, how should I say, a long-term plan that unfolds little by little. It's something with a very specific goal that needs to be dealt with quickly. You've only been planning it, but now you put it into action, finish the job in a few days, and wrap it up. This is a significant and opportune moment in time when you can finally take your sophisticated strategic plans or complex tactical maneuvers, which can change many things in a very short period, and turn them into actual events. And since Mercury and Mars form a conjunction in the term of Mars in Capricorn, where Mars is traditionally placed in its sign of exaltation, this is actually a very aggressive structure. So, you can legally screw over your competitors. This means you can use some kind of maneuver to push out your opponent. This isn't something dramatic that only appears in dramas or movies, but something that can actually be used in real life, like exposing an opponent's weakness or, anyway, bringing up an issue of poor performance that had been buried. It's that kind of thing. And also, a major decision related to purely business matters to making money can be made at this time. So to speak, you make a plan, change everything you've been doing until now, and according to the new plan, you completely change the direction of your operations or make a sharp turn, something like that. And 2 days later, Venus moves and meets Pluto. But since Pluto is currently right between the fixed star Altair and the fixed star Dabih, when Venus forms a conjunction with Pluto, it means it will also form a conjunction with Altair and Dabih in sequence. That's what it means. So, it happens on January 20th, and is a structure that is active from the 19th to the 21st. In relationships based on affection, such as romantic dating or long-term marriage, a significant red flag can appear. To be precise, when you should be sharing warm and sincere feelings with someone, you do something with an unnecessary, entirely different atmosphere. It's doing something highly unfitting and out of place. You get overwhelmed and swept away in your own desperate emotions, and after a period of deep consideration, you forcefully make a decision and you act according to that decision, but eventually it transforms into something you'll regret for a very long time. So, what this means is that Altair has a certain unique character quality like that, especially Altair. It's a star that is really not compatible with feminine planets, so at a time when you shouldn't be courageous, when you should be a bit vague, appease people and just let things slide, You instead act strongly, muster your courage, and push forward. Acting in that way is when significant problems begin to arise. So, for example, you blurt out a confession when there was absolutely no prior mutual understanding at all. If you had waited for about 6 months or a year, and then later, when the ground was well prepared, you might have gotten a very good result. But if you act in a completely unprepared and vulnerable state, being faithful only to your own intense emotions, and take an action that is like a final decision, then the sprouts will wither and turn yellow. You can think of it in that way. Now, Mercury, which is following Venus, will similarly on the 23rd meet Altair, Pluto, and Dabih in sequence, just like Venus did. It's a structure that is active from January 22nd to the 23rd. At this time, you do something secretly. So, it's like this. The section chief and the assistant manager don't know, but there's a task directly ordered by someone at the department head level or higher, and you're told not to talk about it until it's over. It's a little bit shady, isn't it? But as you go through life, things like this can happen. Without anyone around you knowing, you're given a heavy responsibility, and you're all alone. There are things that you have to resolve quietly. But if you're anxious and on edge while doing it, the probability of success is high. So at this time, especially for those whose Time Lord is Mercury, you may find yourself in a nerve-wracking situation that you don't normally experience. So you end up taking on a heavy task that requires much more responsibility than you thought. Or issues related to information security may come to the fore. And also, it's a period where you are prone to unexpected accidents or sudden work emergencies that prevent you from going home, leading to working late or all night. And in 3 days' time, it is not explicitly marked here, but the dodecatemorion of Jupiter and the dodecatemorion of Saturn will form a significant conjunction at around 7 degrees of the sign of Aquarius. Furthermore, this alignment will meet with the Sun as it is passing through 5 degrees of Aquarius. It is also highly probable that it met with the planet Mercury as well during this period, because Jupiter is currently in retrograde and Saturn is in direct motion. So, the degrees of their dodecatemoria slowly approach each other, with Jupiter in retrograde and Saturn in direct motion, and they brush past each other. At that moment, it forms a structure where it aspects the Sun. When you apply the dodecatemorion, you can often see cases like this. This is a structure that is valid from January 25th to the 26th. Usually, a Jupiter-Saturn structure would last for a very long time, but now, because of the dodecatemorion, the period is 1/12 as long, and with Jupiter in retrograde, they meet suddenly as if brushing past each other and then quickly move apart, so the effective period is short. At this time, personally, there might be news related to real estate that could make people reverse their decisions. So, at the central or local government levels, they might suddenly change a real estate policy or some specific regulation or regulatory framework, forcing you to discard all your previous plans and start over again from the very beginning. That kind of unpredictable thing can definitely happen. And at a company level, the management team could be replaced, or the owner's share ratio could change, causing a shift in the corporate governance structure. It's not a nice expression, but we call them the higher-ups. The circumstances of the adults at the top change, so control or operations will be carried out in a different direction than before. Signs of that can appear at this time. And 2 days later, Mars moves and meets Pluto again. Since Mars is slow, it follows Mercury and Venus. Of course, before that, it meets Altair and Dabih again. This is a structure that is active from January 25th to the morning of the 30th. Mars-Pluto is one of the most catastrophic and dangerous structures in astrology, but strangely, Altair has a surprisingly positive synergy with Mars. The star Dabih also has a favorable chemistry with Mars, so not at other times, And without considering the surrounding fixed stars, if we only look at Pluto and Mars, it almost always has a malevolent meaning. But now, Pluto is in a specifically enclosed state between Altair and Dabih. Since it meets Mars in that state, this means that for a prepared few, this could be a transit where they can attain a significant amount of success, more than you might initially expect. So, this isn't for people who are complacent with their current situation, but for those who are very ambitious. Because they are ambitious, their various goals are higher. For those who are thinking of the big picture, the opportunity they've been waiting for can arrive. And in a way, it has a similar meaning to the Mercury-Mars structure I mentioned earlier. It's a time when you can push out competitors using a very unconventional method you don't normally use. An unconventional method, because it's not used normally, can be a strong and extreme method that breaks people's conventions. And because it's unconventional, it rarely materializes as an actual event. So from the opponent's perspective, it's easy to let their guard down, thinking, surely they wouldn't do that. So, it's best to avoid competing or causing disputes if possible, but if you absolutely must, then the side with Mars as the Time Lord can use a well-organized, organized method like this to step on their competitor and rise up. However, no matter what, Mars, Altair, and Pluto, Dabih is not included. These first three all belong to the malevolent stars. Therefore, on a collective level, not an individual one, it could be a major disaster or a very big accident. You could get caught up in the kind of event where numerous people are injured or killed in an instant. And a day later, Mercury and Venus meet. Their positions switch. It means they meet in between this period. Right now, since Mercury is orbiting near the Sun, and Venus is also moving direct, in a way for inner planets, this is their fastest period cyclically. Because they are moving fastest relative to each other, the period that Mercury and Venus maintain an effective conjunction range will also be long. From the 21st to February 5th, that's almost, how long is that? That's over half a month. A structure that operates for more than half a month. Well, this time is not bad. Usually you'd think, this isn't my area. This isn't my turf. Encouraging news comes from an unexpected area you previously thought wasn't your typical playground. So it is a remarkable opportunity to, so to speak, cross the boundaries far beyond your usual domain and the professional work area you are involved in. Such an opportunity can come now before and after this Mercury-Venus conjunction. But on the other hand, for those who are a bit unprepared, a plan or proposal that you didn't really expect to work out well at first might suddenly get accepted or adopted, and you're like, huh? I haven't thought about the next step at all. Because of that, some slightly bewildering things can happen. In the end, it is something I always say during my astrology lectures. But when good fortune arrives, if you do absolutely nothing, you get nothing at all. So, from the very start, if you have thoughts, dreams, and ambitions, you need to keep trying various things and laying the necessary groundwork when others are not. What does it mean to lay the groundwork? It's something that doesn't show results right away, but you still put in the effort to create it. You create it and use it when needed. And even if it's awkward, you do something, you make contact, you notify someone, you tell people, this is what I want, or this is what I'm preparing. You get what I'm saying, right? Laying the groundwork, that's how I'd put it. When a good, decent celestial structure comes and good fortune enters horoscopically, it's the people who have laid a lot of groundwork who gain something. So, in the end, the well-prepared person eventually reaps the greatest rewards. If you haven't laid any solid groundwork and are just sitting idly under an apple tree with your mouth wide open, a winning lottery ticket certainly isn't going to just fall directly into your mouth. Actually, buying a lottery ticket regularly, though very passive and uncertain with low probability, is one way of laying the groundwork. I don't particularly recommend it, though. But it's not about unearned income like that, but rather consistently contemplating your work, career path, or investment avenues, and laying the groundwork. Even if you find yourself forced to take a loss in the short term, you must remain resilient. To be able to lay the necessary groundwork for that long of a period, you have to study the market deeply and truly prepare yourself by studying enough to have a firm, unwavering conviction that won't be shaken by temporary volatility. Anyway, that's how it is. This has been the Chronosight Weekly Fortune Forecast for latter half of January 2026. That is all. Thank you.